Our next unit is information system and data governance. Let us see where does this unit falls in the larger scheme of things. This is your unit 19 as per your new GLIME 2021 of arrangements, and then the last unit is unit 20, and then that will complete your section F, technology and analytics. So what do we have in unit 19? We have 3 subunits: accounting information systems, data governance, and COSO framework, internal control for data governance. So we intend to complete this subunit at least for today. The focus of this section F basically is on some new concepts, new ideas, especially big data. We will discuss about big data in much more detail in your next unit, unit 20th. So what it is basically, when you say big data, it's a set of data that is too large that it cannot be analyzed, it cannot be processed with our traditional data processings. So how to capture such a large data, how to store it, how to analyze, that is what the focus of your section F is, and we will discuss this in detail in your next subunits. So today we'll be focusing primarily on your accounting information system and different decision support systems. Okay, then management information system, MIS. This system is basically for the middle level management that takes important decisions for the organization. What MIS does for us: MIS takes in input in any form, maybe in the digital form, scanned form, or maybe entered through some data processing system. Then it processes the information and gives the output for the management to take decisions. Could be your production data, could be your financial information, could be anything. Input processed into output. This output is then used by the mid-level management to take some day-to-day decisions. So remember, your management information system, it is classified by function. Your MIS include accounting. Your MIS include finance, that is information related to budgeting, planning, forecasting. Your MIS includes information regarding production, marketing, so on and so forth. So that's why these are called single function systems, because they perform a certain part of the whole activity. But now with the passage of time, we have something that is taking over your conventional MIS. We have ERP, which we have discussed already in your section D. Just a quick overview. ERP basically it's a software platform that is used to plan and keep records of resources, and it does so many things other than what MIS does. It manages your finances, it manages your accounting, HR, manufacturing, supply chain, project management, and so on and so forth. It manages your labor capability, labor capacity, which is normally not managed by MIS system, your materials, your property, so on and so forth. So let us focus primarily on our specific area that we need to discuss: accounting information system, AIS, which is basically subpart of MIS. Remember, MIS takes in information for your accounting information system, and then based upon this accounting information system, the mid-level management takes some important decisions for the business. So what is basically an AIS? AIS is accounting information system. It has 3 subparts. One is your general ledger. It also has what, of course, this is the foundation of your financial reporting. That's the reporting that what basically it includes. Let me show you. It includes your financial statement that we prepare for external users, statement of financial position, income statement, statement of cash flow, statement of changes in equity, statement of comprehensive income. We will discuss all these inshallah in our section A, which we will start maybe in a couple of weeks when I will start our part 1 cycle again. So basically this GLFRS is basically for gap based financial reporting. So this is the part of your AIS. This is the first component. Then the second component, without which any accounting system is incomplete, especially the one that is involved in manufacturing, that is cost accounting, CVP analysis, budgets. So this is an addition to the function performed by AIS is the MRS, that is the management reporting systems, where we have information about our different processes, products, services, and so on and so forth. And then the third component of your accounting information system is what you call the TPS, that is the transaction processing system. Your payroll processing, which is very of course a part of every business organization. Then your accounting information system that includes your vouchers, your invoices, and the system is then processes them into their accounts payable and then account receivable. Of course, we have AR and your AP systems, general ledgers as well. So TPS basically is the transaction processing system that processes routine transactions. An important term here to learn is what you call the system integrity. Means the system will only take in the transaction that is complete. Incomplete transactions are rejected by the system. Okay, then we have something which we have done much more in detail, in more detail than is necessary. Your accounting cycles. There are 5 accounting cycles, and you have done them in a much more detail than required for your exam. You won't be tested on the question in this depth, but it's always recommended to learn these accounting cycles because they will help you understand that how a system of internal control should work in larger organizations. I'm sure you have those complete videos with you where we have discussed every accounting cycle in detail with its system flow chart. Everything was discussed there. So these are the 5 accounting cycle. Of course, they are the part of your accounting information system. Of course, transaction processing system. AIS has 3 components which we have discussed. The first cycle is sales to customer on credit. This will result in AR, and then recognition of your account receivable. This is the first part. Then once the sale is made, we collect money from our customer. That is collection of cash from the customers or the account receivable. Then purchase on credit from our supplier, and this would result in recognition of accounts payable. Once the goods have been purchased, we have to pay to our suppliers payment of cash to satisfy the trade payables. That's the 4th cycle. And finally, the payment of employees for work performed and the allocation of their cost to our products and services. Clearly, this is what you call the payrolls. So these accounting cycles are part of your TPS, which is sub part of your accounting information system. As I told you that in many larger organizations that use ERP like Oracle Financials, they have SAP. So this system can take on all these sub parts of AIS that we have just discussed. So our prime focus here is going to be discussion on data, fields, records, databases, database management systems. So here what you should do is to focus on key terminologies and what do they mean, and be able to answer questions requiring the specific knowledge on these key terms. So I'm just emphasizing again, this is a high-tech area, and we as management accountants only need to know up to the extent that is given in GLIME and in the GLIME's questions. So there is no need to go beyond that. There are about 300 questions in section F. So if you do all these questions, which we will do, and all these terms, so I think should be sufficient enough to give you full coverage of your section F. So let us define some key terms and then try to apply this in the questions. First, database. Database basically is a collection of organized data. Let me take you one step below so that you fully understand. This is how a database might look. Let me take this. This is the one. That will make much more sense. Now, let's say we have a student named Smith, and he has been given a student number, class number, and the subject he takes. Now, first of all, if you just look at this rectangle, what you see is the name Smith, which is made up of characters. And in computer sciences, the characters are encoded in what you call bytes. Byte itself is sum of 8 bits. Let's not go to that detail. So remember, the characters, they are represented by bytes in the computer systems. Then these bytes itself, when they combine into SMITH, S represents a separate byte, MIT. So when you combine these, Smith, this name itself, it becomes a field. It becomes a field. Then we have another field with the name student number. 1 and 7, they will represent byte. Collectively, they will be a field. So we have a field where we enter the name. Then we have a field where we enter the student number. Then we have a field where we put the class and the subject. When we combine different fields, this will give us the record of Smith. So please remember the flow of information. First we had the byte, that is the character. Combination of bytes gives you the field like name, student number, class. And then combination of different meaningful fields give you a record. And then many records are added to give you what you call a file. So please remember the flow. First we have the character, that is byte. Combination of bytes in a specific location is field. Combination of fields gives you a record of Smith, Brown, XYZ, Salman, Rahat. And then the combination of records gives you a file. So please remember the flow. Now, and then what is then database? Database is the collection of the files, final results in a meaningful way. Bytes into fields, fields into records, records into files, and collection of these files is what you call database. So going back to what we were doing. So what is a database? Basically, it's a collection of organized data. And what is an organized data? Files. And files are made up of different records. Records are made up of different fields, and fields are made up of different characters or bytes. So keep that idea in mind. Okay, so that's what you call database. Then what is data? Data are simply known facts that can be recorded, and they can have some implicit meaning. Just like we just saw the names of the students, their class numbers, subjects, student numbers, and so on and so forth. So basically what we have done, we have created a mini world of maybe 150 students with their unique names, student numbers, subjects, and so on and so forth. So basically database is a mini world, some part of the real world about which data is stored in a database. Just like in the example, students' names, student grades, transcripts at a university, its collection is what you call a mini world, and this mini world is your database. Since this database itself is a collection of data in an organized form, we need to make some sense out of this data, and this is done by a system called the database management system. What this system does for us, it's a computer program. It creates database, it creates fields, it creates records, specifies what can be entered in a particular field. The name field will only contain the name, the number, the student number will only contain student number. So database management system, it creates the database. Once it's created, then it maintains the database so that information can be retrieved quickly, organized in a more efficient manner. Then the third function of database management system is to safeguard the database. Information in the database must be protected, and unauthorized individuals must not be allowed to change the data. And finally, the last part is to generate reports. That if you want to generate reports regarding the students' grades, So we can generate a report with the student name and with the different grades obtained in different subjects. So the different types of database management systems used in practice. One is DB2, Oracle, structured query language servers, and this is the one which I think all of you would have on your system, because when you install Microsoft Office, it has 4 components primarily: Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Microsoft Access. So remember, Microsoft Access is also a database management system. Mostly we don't use that. Normally we have our specialized DBMS, but still it's still a usable software, can be used in the same way. So moving on, so this is how your database system could logically look like. We have the store database, that is the information in the tabulated form. Then what this information means, how do we define it? There is a specific way to do it. It's called the database definition language, and this DDL defines different types of data stored, their rules of storage, their rules of computation and all that, and that's what makes up the foundation of your database management system. Since this database itself is meaningless unless we have some way to organize the data, like we have the names of the students, their numbers, their subjects, their grades given in the different tabular form. We need some application that can extract information in our required format. So in order to access this information, DBMS software will extract the required information through a query language, that's SQL that we just discussed, structured query language, and using that language we can generate reports of our choice. Modern database management system, they also support graphs. Previously, when the Oracle was originally introduced way back 20 years ago, it used to give information only on tabulated form. But now the new database management systems, we can build application around them, and using those applications we can retrieve the data in the form we want. Not always in the form of tabulation, we can get it in the form of graphs and so on and so forth. Okay, then some important advantages of the database management system. First advantage is that it is less costly. If you manage a paper-based system, it costs more. Storage cost is more. But if you have DBMS, it will take less space. And of course, initial cost would be high, no doubt about that. But the regular recursive cost would be low. You have a common language. Many users, user A in finance, B in marketing, C in logistics. So they can get information from the same common database in the same way they want, but specific to their specific needs. Database management system has security features. If A is allowed to see only account receivable system, he cannot see any other system. B is only responsible for payroll, so he can only see the payroll part of the system. Similarly, C, maybe he is responsible for letter of credit accounting. He will only be able to see this part and not anything else. So this is the important part, that only the authorized individuals, they can only do what they are required to do, and they cannot encroach upon any other part of the system. Then this is a very important advantage, efficient storage. Your database management system will apply a technique called data redundancy. Means similar data will not be stored again and again. Like if we have different fields, they will be just recorded only once, just once. And then of course from these fields, different tables can be, or different reports can be generated. So your DBMS uses the storage more efficiently. It will try to minimize as much as possible the duplication of data. Data is not a redundant in the DBMS. Only the information, that is the data that is frequently used, is stored in a way that uses less space. Then easy access. Yes, your database administrator will allow you certain access to the system, and then you can access the specific part of database of your authorization, and that is much more helpful than your conventional system. There are certain disadvantages as well, of course. What are the disadvantages? Expensive hardware. Yes, that's the one-time cost Waleed you were talking about. Expensive hardware, initial cost would be higher, and of course not just hardware, you need a sophisticated software just like SQL2, DB2. Staff training, of course, this is also an important, I won't say disadvantage, but still it's a cost to be considered. And then finally, since your entire information is now located in a single place in your database, now this needs to be protected. It has to be some check and balance that not everyone can get access to the physical database system. Okay, then moving on, this is we already discussed. Who is database administrator? You need to know the role. Database administrator, what is his prime role? You would see in the questions also. Database administrator is responsible for authorizing access to the database. Who can see what? Imran can see what? Nabil can see what part of the system? This is first and foremost job of database administrator. Authorizing access to the database. Who is allowed to do what? Who is allowed to change what? Who is allowed to see what? Then coordinating, monitoring its use, seeing who is doing what. Someone A has been allowed to access only the GL, what he is trying to do in the inventory management system. Monitoring who is doing what. Of course, A should not be able to access, but if anyone is trying to gain unauthorized access to this part of the system where he has no authority to be, then it's the job of the database administrator to see. Then database designers, remember they are different people. They are not, administrator is the one who authorizes access, coordinates and monitors. Designers are different. Sometimes they're also called system analysts. So these designers are responsible to identify which data to be stored, what should be the storage structure. This is done by a team of professionals in consultation with the end users, of course, who will be using the system, and what are the specific application needed. Remember, so database administrator is just there to authorize access, coordinate and monitor the structure of the database, storage structure used, applications to be used to access and process the data. This is the job of database designer, or sometimes they are also called the system analyst. Now let us see some additional terminologies. First terminology is RDMBS, that is Relational Database Management System. As the term suggests, Relational Database Management System, as I just told you, that the data in the database is stored in different fields, tables. How those tables tend to link with each other. Like for example, here we go. Now, these two tables are linked. How? Because computer sciences, the major for Smith and Brown is what we have here in detail. Right? So the CS breakdown is given here. So the student and course, they are linked. Student and grade reports, they are linked with these specific links, 17, 17, and then for 8, 8 and all given. So the way when different fields and tables in a database are linked together through some relations, this is what you call, this type of database is called the Relational Database Management System, where the tables across the database, they have some linkage between them, and they can be joined to draw the kind of report we want. Next term is cardinality. Cardinality means that how unique a data set is. Like for example, this is I think the previous example given in the previous version of the recordings. When I say that Asif of FTC Global, now this is something that will make me unique. There is no other Asif with FTC Global. So I can say that in this case, cardinality, the uniqueness of this data set is very high. ASIF of FTC Global. There is just one ASIF of FTC Global. High cardinality means high uniqueness, high degree of uniqueness, right? Okay, then they can be also normal cardinality, like grades in the exam can be A, B, C, D, E. Students can have any of these grades, so there is a specific range between which the numbers can, or the grades can fall. Not a unique, A is not unique to anyone. Many students can have A, many students can have B, C, D, E. So this is called normal cardinality. Normal cardinality, normal uniqueness, right? But ASIF of FTC Global, this is unique. It's just me and me alone. See, high cardinality. But many students can have C's and B's and A's, so there can be repetition. This is called normal cardinality. And then there is another term called low cardinality. In that case, maybe the numbers can fall between 2.5 to minus 2.5, and the number could be anything between these. And there could be limitless numbers between these. Maybe here, minus 2.339. So we will say low cardinality. So remember the term. Then next term is referential integrity. What is referential integrity? Let's say if we enter a purchase order in our system. Of course, this would be specifically bought from our specific approved vendor A193, for example. So it means a certain purchase order from a certain vendor, if entered, and if that vendor already exists, we would say that there is high referential integrity. Or whenever we want to find out what we have purchased in the last 2 months from A193, we can get all the details of different purchase orders and different components bought. Right? They can be linked. So when we enter a certain piece of information in our database and there is already some reference existing, that we call referential integrity. Data dictionary. Data dictionary basically defines your database, the components within the database. Let me take you back. Now, how your physical system and your logical system are laid out. What are the different types of data sets would be stored in the database? It has to be defined. It has to be defined in specific way that a database management system understands. How the physical and logical system is laid out, this is done through what you call the data dictionary. Basically, data dictionary is a file that contains the overall structure of what the system is all about, physical system and the data set stored within the database. It has to be specified in a specific computer understandable format, and that file that contains this information is called the data dictionary. Moving on. Query management facility. Yes, your database contains lots of fields, tables stored in a way that minimizes the storage. If we need a certain piece of information, how do we do that? There has to be some language through which we can communicate with the database and extract the required information. This is done through a system called the query management facility. We can request the system in a specific way, and then the required information can be retrieved in the form of tables. It could be retrieved in the form of graphs, and so on and so forth. That's what you call query management facility. Schema. Schema basically refers to the overall logical structure of, it's related to data dictionary. Data dictionary is a file, and how your system, physical as well as logical. When I say physical mean the hardware, the components used in the system. And when I say logical mean how are they linked, what is placed there, what part of the system gets information from where. That is what you call logical. Just like when you draw a network structure in your organization, like let's say maybe your company has 5 systems. One is placed here, other is placed here, other is connected via maybe a radio terminal to position C, E and F. So this is what you call the logical structure. Then when we say the physical structure, means what basically are the hardware used in these different locations, and what are the ways we communicate with these different positions. So this is the idea given in schema. Schema basically is the description of overall logical structure of the database using the language in the data dictionary. And then what is subschema? Subschema, let me take you back to this. Subschema basically how would a user or a particular application, how a particular user or application will make use of the database. This is called subschema. Schema itself is the overall structure of your database, and subschema is how the users and application, they will interact with the database and which part of the system will they be able to access. That's what you call subschema. Just remember these terms well and be able to answer the questions, and I think you should be good to go. Then we have database mapping facility. Let's say we just want a physical printout of our overall database. So database mapping facility is a software that will convert your database logical design into some printable form, which you can just take the printout and see how the different components of your database are connected and how they are laid out. So database mapping facility simply gives what you can call a graphical representation of your whole database system, just to see how the database is arranged. Okay, now so far we have discussed the relational database management system, primarily based on tables, fields, records. Now I won't say it's an innovation. I have been maybe discussing this, and of course I was involved in computer sciences about 2 decades ago. This is quite old, two decades old, but the idea is interesting. So far we have discussed databases with regard to fields, characters, bytes. What if I have data of my students where there is a picture, where there is maybe some audio file, some video file related to Shamsu, right? So how do we bring this into our database? So object-oriented database is a step in addition to your relational database management system, where we can incorporate more than text in our databases. Audios, videos, different formats, different, which you call multimedia. So multimedia can now be added to your databases now, and this is quite a helpful tool for our big data analysis, where we have variety of data, different types of inputs, and we can analyze text, audios, videos, pictures, and so on and so forth using some data processing tools. So this is what you call object-oriented databases, where we have more than just text. We can have variety of inputs. Then we have online analytical processing. This will be discussed in detail in your next unit when we will discuss your big data. What is online analytical processing? This is basically, it's a facility that will help you analyze large sets of data, and this will serve one of the tools we will use in big data. That is the subject of our discussion later in our next subunit. So we'll do, even the next few terms will also be related to what we'll be doing in the next. In-memory analytics, those who have studied computer sciences, you would know that there is RAM and ROM. RAM is called the random access memory, ROM is the read-only memory. This is unvolatile, the data stays on it. But RAM, which could be up to 16 GB in the latest system, sometimes it could be up to 32 GB. I remember way back in our times, 64 MB used to be a lot of memory. 64 MB of RAM was a huge, massive RAM, but it's totally irrelevant now. So random access memory is a volatile memory in your computer, very fast, quick. So the data that we want to analyze is loaded on RAM. Since it's very fast, your processor can analyze this information much more quickly. So this is called the in-memory analytics. The data which we want to analyze could be loaded on RAM, and then since it is very fast compared to your hard drive is very slow, but RAM is much more faster, and then we can load our data we want to analyze in RAM, and then we can analyze it a much faster way. Then we have search engine technology, just like the Google, Bing, many search engines that can generate your search results in maybe split seconds. So we have this technology also. We will discuss these three specifically in our big data in our next chapter. How do we use them in analyzing large, huge chunks of data which cannot be processed in a conventional means. So we'll use it then and there. Then the next terminology is data warehousing. Data warehousing is that the data that is old is moved away and put it somewhere else in microfiche forms, or maybe in some hard drives, and kept separate from the main current data. But this data warehouse sometimes can be very helpful for us there is a concept which we'll discuss in our next unit called data mining. How we can use our past data, how we can establish correlation between them, and how can we use this valuable information about data correlation in planning our product offering and in making some business decision. So for the time being, remember, data warehouse is a place where we will keep our data that is not currently in use. Data cleansing means that we will clean up the data, means that unnecessary, incorrect data is identified by the system and it is cleansed or deleted. This is the idea. Again, it will come in our next subunit in detail. Data mining is just like when we mine for gold, we mine for copper, we mine for some expensive rare earth metals. What we do, we are sitting at a pile of very useful information, but unfortunately we do not know which information or which pair of information or combination of information are important. So through data mining, this idea was introduced by Walmart about a couple of decades ago. They identified that the different items they sell, they had some inexplicable correlation between them. Whenever the item A was sold, B was sold. A customer who bought A always bought B, and a customer who bought X always bought Y. So this way they were able to identify many items which were jointly demanded. Even apparently there was no link. If you read about the information on data mining regarding Walmart, you will know that they were able to identify a correlation between diapers called Pampers with what you call Musi in Saudi Arabia, bear. So there was uncanny correlation between them. They were sold together. So there were many such correlations identified that the items, certain items, tend to be sold together. So they use this valuable knowledge to put these two items together. So whenever the customer came, he didn't have to worry about the hassle. He bought these two things together. That's the idea. We'll discuss this in detail in the next class, in the next unit. These areas, of course, they have much more relevance with big data. And then finally, data mart. What is data mart? Data mart is subset of the data from the data warehouse which has some important application for us. So you can say the data mart is a component of data warehouse which we are currently considering for some useful application. Then we have enterprise performance management, EPM, and again they are linked to your next unit. We will discuss it in detail. Business intelligence is coming in detail. What are the tools we use? The decision support system, executive information systems, all coming. So budgeting and forecasting, how do we use different data analytical tools for planning, budgeting, forecasting? There are so many questions on forecasting and budgeting which you might have done in your section B. You will find them again here in your section F. And then financial reporting, of course, we'll discuss all these, analyzing performance results and identifying ways to improve. They're all coming. So just keep that in mind. That was just a brief intro, specifically what I've given in a rectangular form here and here. They will be discussed in reference to the big data, where these topics are discussed legitimately in much more detail. So that completes your AIS. We have focused primarily on AIS related areas, and those that are linked with the next unit will discuss it much more detail there.